So I've been using Kdenlive to edit my videos here whenever I switched over from using Arch Linux a little bit over 6 months ago. And I noticed it was logging a lot. For example, there was about 1 million lines of log output in the last 6 months. And I only really create 1 video per week. So, let's call it what, 4 videos per month times 6, 24, maybe 24 videos I've edited and created. That produced 1 million lines of log output. And that's a little bit concerning because, if you're running native Linux, being able to go through your journal.ctl logs just to, find some issues and troubleshoot stuff is really important. And I just noticed those logs are being drowned out by Kdenlive here. For example, you can run something like journal.ctl here and then just, limit things to Kdenlive here, or you can do -t here as well as a short flag. But here you can see all sorts of different lines here. And there was just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of lines, every single time I just opened up Kdenlive or, performed some editing action here. And yeah, it's just a whole lot of debug, info, and warning level logs, which would be super useful if you were developing the application. But as an end user, I'm really only interested in seeing the error logs, right? If the program crashes, I want to be able to troubleshoot why, or at least open up a bug report there. Let's go over maybe now just like counting those lines real quick. You can do, word count and then -L here. You can just see the number of lines. It's going to be close to 1 million. I think it was like 998,000. Whatever it was. Yeah, there it is. Cool. And we can also do the opposite of that one, right? We can do exclude Kdenlive. So this will be, the logs on my system, which is kind of interesting because it's like I keep my computer on 24/7 and literally every single other process and application I've run on my system in the last 6 months is almost half of just Kdenlive alone. And then you can also do something like, just getting the byte count as well, number of characters. This one's a little bit less interesting, but you can see there's going to be, I don't know, whatever it was, like 101 megs of output here whenever that finishes. And, if you would do the opposite as well, then that's going to be, I don't know, I think it was like 75 megs. But, you can add that up and be like, okay, there's only like 175 megs total of, the characters and the logs. But journal.d doesn't really work like that because it stores the logs in a binary format. So if we do journal.ctl, and then it is disk usage here, you can see there's about 861 megs. And if you added up these two values here, whatever it is, 177 megs, that's a lot less than this because there's a lot of different metadata and whatever format it's saving in. So it's actually using quite a bit lot more. Now you might think like, okay, that's not such a big deal here. Maybe Kdenlive is using a couple hundred megs or even a couple of gigs of logs over a few years, if I let it continue doing that. But, I do actually find that to be a big deal. And by default, journal.d is going to start deleting older logs once you hit 4 gigs, unless you configure things to do elsewise. And I kind of like having access to those older logs, if anything, to help me, troubleshoot something here or there, or looking at, a list of boots and things like that. Fortunately, the fix here is quite easy. For example, I've actually wrapped Kdenlive here in a little shell script here. You can see it's being loaded from a local bin here. And if you go into .fried rice, which if you're using this, then everything is already set up for you. But if you're not, you might really want to replicate something similar. So taking a look here, all it really does here is call Kdenlive directly, but it sets one specific environment variable. So Kdenlive is a GUI, right? It's a graphical user interface, and it's using Qt to build that GUI. And in this case here, you can actually configure Qt to be like, hey, by the way, let's disable debug logs, info logs, and warning logs, set them all to false here. And notice here, I'm not including one for error logs because I do want those to pass through. But yeah, this happens to be on my system path. So when I run Kdenlive, either launching it like this through Walker or from the command line, etc., it is just going to be using this binary here, and everything is good to go. And then the logs aren't there. So, now I actually haven't seen a single log since I made this change here because Kdenlive has been stable, it's not crashing, so I'm not seeing any error logs or any exceptions being thrown. So yeah, since I believe May 30th, whenever I made this change here in my .files here, .fried rice, then yeah, you can see it actually here, it was from May 30th. And yeah, that's pretty nice. Really quick win here. And by the way, this can apply to other Qt apps as well, not just Kdenlive. There's actually ways to do this where you can set this for all the different apps. But in my case here, I kind of like taking things slow, right? In this case, Kdenlive was the only application on my system behaving in this way. So I only want to change this behavior for Kdenlive. Now, keep in mind one more thing here. This is mid-2026. Maybe in the future, Kdenlive will disable these by default, in which case here, I'll just delete this binary, and then it's just going to use a native Kdenlive one, and then you are good to go here. So it's a really easy fix to revert this back to the default behavior. But who knows? With that said, though, I really do like this idea of being able to mold your own system, right? In this case, I found something I didn't like. Very easy to change it here. Figured I would share it because it wasn't super straightforward on how to get all the logging disabled here with Kdenlive for things I didn't want to see. So with that said, yeah, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. It does help a lot. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.